She was only a maid in the Vampire King's castle, quiet, unseen, ordinary. But when everyone around him lied, he discovered she was the only one who spoke the truth and the only heart he could trust, the maid no one noticed. People say every castle has secrets, but this castle felt different, like the walls themselves were holding their breath, afraid to speak. The night candles burned slow, painting golden light across the stone halls. Servants hurried quietly, trying not to be noticed. And in the middle of all that silence, she walked. "Oh, Alina, just a maid." A simple blue dress, a white apron, calloused hands from scrubbing floors nobody ever thanked her for. She moved with quiet grace like someone who had learned long ago that her voice did not matter here. When nobles passed, they didn't even look at her. To them, she was not a person, only work. But Elena noticed everything. The tremble in the guards' hands, the tension among the advisors, the way whispers traveled through the corridors like nervous birds. Something in the castle was always afraid, and she didn't know why. Until the night she saw him, the Vampire King. He stood alone in the great hall, tall and still as a statue, shadows wrapped around him like a cloak. His skin was pale, his eyes deep and distant, as if he carried centuries of memories nobody could imagine. People said he had no heart, no mercy, no feelings. Yet when Alina glanced at his face, just for a moment, she didn't see a monster. Oh, she saw loneliness. He turned, sensing movement. Alina froze. A maid was never supposed to be noticed. She lowered her eyes, ready to be dismissed or punished. Instead, his voice came low and calm. "Don't bow so deeply, you'll hurt your neck." It startled her, kindness from him. She nodded, confused, and stepped back. But as she did, she noticed something faint on his wrist, a small cut, half-healed, not from battle, from something more private, something quiet, something painful. He hid it quickly. The court entered soon after, flooding the room with noise. Advisors spoke, nobles lied, everyone pretended loyalty while secretly fearing him. He listened, silent, cold, untouchable, but Alina watched carefully and she saw it. Every lie hurt him, not because he was weak, but because he could never trust anyone. That night, as the hall emptied, one of the servants slipped poison into the king's wine and placed it on the table, pretending to obey orders. Alina saw it, her heart hammered. If she spoke, she could die for accusing someone above her. If she stayed quiet, the king would drink. Her hands shook as she walked forward, very slowly. And when he reached for the cup, she whispered, barely breathing, "My lord, please don't drink that." The hall fell silent. He stared at her, surprised, not angry, just stunned. No one ever warned him, no one ever protected him, no one ever dared. Their eyes met, and for the first time in centuries, the Vampire King felt something unfamiliar. Trust. He gently set the cup down. Then, without looking away from her, he asked in a voice that sounded almost wounded, "Why did you stop me?" Alina swallowed, terrified but honest. "Because your life matters, even if you think it doesn't." The words hung in the air like fragile light. For a long moment, he didn't speak. He simply watched her, searching for lies and finding none. And then, quietly, he dismissed everyone from the room. Only he and Elena remained. The candles flickered. The castle held its breath. And with a voice softer than night itself, he said, "Stay, I want to know why you see me differently than everyone else." The door closed. And in that quiet, Alina realized something she never expected. The Vampire King wasn't dangerous because he was cruel. He was dangerous because he had forgotten how to trust, and now somehow, he had chosen her, the first honest conversation. The room felt quieter than the night outside. Even the candles seemed to watch them, curious. Alina stood near the long table, unsure where her hands belonged. She had never been alone with a king, and certainly not with one everyone whispered about in frightened voices. But the way he looked at her wasn't cruel. It was searching, like someone listening for a truth he had not heard in a very long time. He walked slowly toward the window, keeping his distance. Moonlight drew a pale line across his face, softening the sharp strength he carried. People usually fear me, he said quietly, or they pretend to love me so I will not destroy them. You did neither. Alina swallowed, choosing her words carefully. I was afraid, she admitted, voice shaking, but fear doesn't erase what is right. He turned, surprised again, not offended, thoughtful. Most people trade truth for safety. Oh, she lifted her eyes. I've scrubbed floors my whole life. I've seen how power can make people selfish, but I also know even powerful hearts get tired. For a moment, something fragile crossed his expression. The title he wore, king, ruler, immortal, fell away, and Alina saw simply a man who had carried too much for too long. He leaned against the stone wall, eyes distant. They used poison, he murmured almost to himself. Not swords, not rebellion, cowards in the dark. He wasn't angry, he sounded disappointed. Alina felt a gentle ache for him, unexpected but real. They're afraid of what they don't understand, she said softly. Maybe they never tried to know you. His gaze softened. No one tries, they come to bargain, to flatter, to survive, but you. He stopped. He didn't know how to finish the sentence. Silence settled again, but it wasn't heavy. It was tender, like something new learning how to breathe. He finally asked quietly, what do they say about me when they think I cannot hear? Alina hesitated. Honesty was risky, but lying now would break the strange, fragile trust growing between them. They say you don't feel anything, she whispered, that you have no soul, no heart, no kindness left. He closed his eyes, not in anger, but in a pain so deep it seemed older than the castle itself. Then they are wrong, he said, barely audible. I feel too much, and I've lost too much to show it. The truth inside his words trembled. Centuries of loneliness hidden behind silence. He looked toward the empty hall, the throne, the shadows, the walls that had watched everything. This castle remembers every betrayal, he continued. Every promise broken, every friend who turned into an enemy. I learned that if I showed mercy, they called it weakness. If I trusted, they used it against me, so I chose distance, coldness, control. He paused, then turned back to her. But tonight, when you warned me, you didn't demand anything. You didn't kneel for favor. You didn't ask for gold. You risked yourself for nothing. Her voice softened, steady. Not for nothing, for truth, for life. A long silence rested between them. Then, gently, carefully, he asked something no one had ever asked a maid before. What is your name? Alina. He repeated it slowly, as if the word itself was unfamiliar music. Alina, stay near the palace hall for the next few days. If someone tried once, they will try again. I want you safe. She blinked. Safe. No one had ever worried about her safety before. But just as warmth flickered in her chest, the giant doors at the end of the hall burst open. Advisors rushed in, voices tense, eyes wide. My lord, there has been another attempt. Another attempt. The Vampire King's expression hardened, not with rage, but with a deep, controlled grief. He looked at Alina only once, and in that one look was something unspoken. Trust me and be careful. Then he turned toward the shadows waiting beyond the doors. Elena stayed behind. And for the first time since coming to the castle, she realized the truth that everyone else had missed. He wasn't the danger. The danger was the people who wanted him gone. And somewhere among them, someone had already decided that if Alina stood beside him, she would have to disappear too, whispers in the dark. The corridors felt colder the next morning, like the castle itself had learned a new fear overnight. Servants moved in silence, eyes lowered, acting as though nothing had happened, but their whispers carried through the stone walls like nervous echoes. Alina walked carefully, carrying linens, trying to look ordinary, invisible, unimportant. But inside, her heart still replayed the moment when he had looked at her with trust, something rare, fragile, almost sacred. She wasn't sure why that look mattered so much, but it did. It made her stand a little straighter. It made her feel like her life finally had meaning. As she turned a corner, she heard voices, sharp, hushed, dangerous. If the king had drunk it, everything would be finished by now. As someone warned him, a maid, just a maid, we will take care of her. Her blood froze. They didn't see her. She stepped back into the shadow of a pillar, holding her breath while two nobles in black cloaks passed by, their rings glinting like cold eyes in the candlelight. They walked away calmly as if they had simply discussed the weather. Her hands trembled. They weren't just trying to kill the king. They were hunting her too. She should have run, she should have stayed quiet, she should have pretended she heard nothing. But instead, she went toward the only place that suddenly felt safe, the Great Hall. The Vampire King stood near the throne, speaking with his advisor, Marcus, a man with tired eyes and loyal posture. They stopped talking when they saw Alina approach. She bowed lightly, respectful, but she didn't hide the fear in her voice. My lord, may I speak with you alone? Marcus glanced at the king, concerned. The king nodded. When the hall emptied, Alina told him everything, the whispers, the plan, the danger closing around them both. She expected anger. She expected him to doubt her. Instead, he listened. Quietly, fully. His expression darkened, not with rage, but with a heavy sadness. I knew it, he murmured. The poison was only the beginning. They want the throne, not justice. And anyone who stands between them and their ambition becomes replaceable. He looked at her slower, deeper, as if weighing a decision that could not be undone. Oh, you risked your life again. Oh, she shook her head gently. I only told the truth again. For a moment, something soft and painfully human crossed his eyes, admiration maybe, respect, a gratitude too deep to easily speak aloud. He stepped closer, his presence strong but not threatening, like a shield made of silence. You do not understand what you have done, he said quietly. You did not simply save my life, you exposed their plan, now they will fear you because they cannot control you. Fear rippled through her chest, but behind it another feeling grew, courage. I won't let fear guide me, she whispered. Not anymore. He studied her, and for the first time, he allowed a small, almost invisible smile to soften his face. You are braver than most warriors I have ever known. Before she could respond, loud footsteps echoed outside. The doors opened again, but this time not with panic. With formality. A council member bowed stiffly. My lord, the court demands an investigation. They also question the maid. Oh, the air shifted. Alina felt the weight of every gaze, every suspicion, every hidden hatred. The king's expression changed, not harsh, but unbreakable. Oh, she is under my protection. Oh, the councilman hesitated. With respect, your majesty, a servant should not stand so close to matters of the throne. People are asking why you trust her. The silence filled the hall. The king looked at Alina, not at the court, not at the nobles, just at her. His voice was calm, steady, undeniable. Because she is the only one who did not lie. The room went rigid. Powerful men who had spent years pretending loyalty suddenly realized something terrible. They could no longer manipulate him. And as the hall slowly emptied in uneasy obedience, Alina felt the cost of his words. Trust was beautiful, but it was also dangerous. When the doors finally closed and quiet returned, she looked at him unsure. My lord, what happens now? His eyes darkened, thoughtful and distant. Now, he said softly, we find who is hiding behind the shadows. But understand this, Alina, from this moment on, they will not simply try to poison me. He paused. They will try to break you. Her heart tightened. The candles flickered harder, as if the castle itself braced for what was coming. And for the first time since stepping into that castle, Alina realized something she could not ignore. This wasn't just a story about a king. This was about trust tested in fire. And darkness was only beginning, the weight of trust. Night fell heavy across the castle, wrapping every corridor in quiet tension. The moonlight slipped through tall windows like silver threads, and somewhere in the distance, a clock rang, echoing slow and lonely across the stone. Alina couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her small bed in the servants' quarters, hands folded tightly, listening to the sound of footsteps moving outside. Every whisper in the hallway felt like danger. Every shadow looked like someone waiting. As she remembered the words, they will try to break you. Not with swords, not with chains, but with fear. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Marcus, the king's advisor, stood at the doorway, his voice low and kind. The king asked that you move closer to the inner chambers. It will be safer there. Safer. The word felt strange. No one had ever worried about her safety before. She gathered her few belongings, a worn ribbon, a small book, a memory of a quieter life, and followed him through winding halls until they reached a room lit with warm candlelight. Rest, Marcus said gently. He trusts you. That means you must also trust yourself. Well, he left. Alina exhaled slowly and lay down, but sleep still refused to come. Instead, she kept thinking about the king, standing alone, surrounded by advisors who pretended loyalty but hid daggers behind words. She wondered how long he had carried that silence, how many nights he had stood awake, pretending not to feel. She didn't realize when she finally drifted into sleep. And she didn't know how long she slept before a sudden sound woke her. A soft voices outside her door. Oh, she is just a maid. How can she be so important? Oh, the king listens to her. That makes her dangerous. Then silence her. Her heart pounded. The handle turned slightly, then stopped. Footsteps faded. The hall went quiet again, but the message stayed cold and clear. They weren't afraid of the king anymore. They were afraid of the truth she carried. Morning came slowly. The king was already in the council chamber when Alina arrived. His presence filled the room, not loud, not harsh, simply steady. He looked like someone carved out of night and strength, but there was something softer in his eyes when he saw her. Oh, you didn't sleep, he said quietly. Oh, she shook her head. Oh, neither did you, she replied. A faint flicker of amusement touched his expression, then faded as the nobles entered. Papers slapped onto tables, voices sharpened, words became weapons. Your Majesty, rumors spread, one councilman said coldly. People say the maid has influence over you. Alina felt the sting of the word. The maid. They said it like an insult, like her heart didn't matter, like truth only counted when it came from someone important. The king stood slowly. His voice was calm. Influence? No, she has courage, something many here have forgotten. The council simmered in quiet anger. Another noble leaned forward. If you trust servants more than your court, what does that say about us? The king's eyes turned colder, not cruel but honest. It says servants have shown me more loyalty than those who swore an oath. The silence crashed across the room. For a heartbeat, Alina almost felt proud. Then fear crept back in. Powerful men do not like losing control, and now every eye turned toward her, not with curiosity, with resentment. After the meeting, the king walked beside her through the long hall. His footsteps were slow, thoughtful. You stood in that room with strength, he said softly. Most people would have trembled. I did tremble, she answered gently. I just chose not to let fear speak for me. Well, he stopped, looked at her, and for a moment, everything around them disappeared. The castle, the whispers, the shadows. There was only the quiet understanding between two people who had learned to survive in different ways. Alina, he said, voice lower, more human, you remind me of who I once hoped I could be. She didn't know what to say. Kindness warmed the air, fragile, almost dangerous, because kindness could be stolen, broken, used against them. Before either of them could speak again, Marcus rushed forward, urgency in his voice. My lord, the one who poisoned the cup has vanished, and someone inside the castle leaked information to our enemies outside the walls. Alina's breath caught. Enemies. Outside. Inside. Everywhere. The king's expression turned serious again, the softness fading back into command. Lock the castle, he said. No one leaves, no one enters without my word. Marcus nodded and disappeared. The king turned to Alina, and his voice carried both warning and promise. This is bigger than a throne, bigger than power. Somewhere close to us, someone wants to tear everything apart, and they will use you to do it if they can. Her heart tightened, but she lifted her chin. I won't run. He studied her again, quietly proud, quietly afraid for her. And then, for the first time, he spoke words he rarely allowed himself to say. I trust you. The moment felt sacred. But trust also made them a target. Far away, unseen, someone watched from the shadows, eyes filled with jealousy and quiet hatred. And as night began to fall again, a silent decision was made. Alina would not simply be threatened. She would be tested. And if she failed, the king would lose more than his throne, the test of loyalty. The castle felt different now, not loud, not chaotic, but strangely quiet, like a storm gathering its strength before breaking. Guards stood at every doorway. Torches burned brighter than usual, throwing long shadows across the floors. Alina walked slowly through the corridor, carrying a tray of tea. It was the same path she had walked 100 times before, yet now every corner felt watched, every silence heavy. Servants stepped aside when she passed. Some avoided her eyes, others whispered behind their hands. She stands next to the king. She thinks she matters. If she falls, no one will mourn her. She pretended not to hear, but each word landed like a stone in her chest. When she reached the council chamber, Marcus opened the door. His face was thoughtful, serious. They are questioning everyone, including you, he said quietly. Do not let their words shake you. She nodded, holding the tray more tightly. Inside, the vampire king sat at the head of the long table. He looked calm, composed, but beneath the stillness, Alina sensed the weight he carried. When their eyes met, something subtle passed between them. You are not alone. The questioning began. One by one, council members asked, how did you know the cup was poisoned? Who told you? What did you gain? Their voices were polite, but their intentions were sharp. They wanted her to break. They wanted fear to twist her truth. Alina breathed slowly and answered quietly, honestly. I saw the poison placed. I warned him. I gained nothing. I only did what was right. Some scoffed. A few exchanged suspicious looks. But the king never interrupted. He watched not as a ruler judging a servant, but as someone listening for the sound of courage. Finally, one councilman leaned forward, eyes cold. If your loyalty is truly pure, then prove it. He slid a sealed letter onto the table. This message must be carried outside the castle walls tonight. Dangerous roads, unknown threats. We need a volunteer to take it. If the maid is as brave as she claims, let her go. Marcus frowned instantly. Oh, that is not necessary. We have trained messengers. But the councilman smiled, the kind of smile that hides a trap. Unless, of course, we are wrong to trust her. The room went quiet. Alina felt the king's gaze before she saw it. Calm, protective, concerned. You will not risk her life for pride, he said firmly. But Alina spoke first. I'll go. Her own words surprised her, and yet they felt right. Not reckless, not desperate, just honest. All her life she had been invisible. Now she had a chance not to be brave for attention, but for truth. The king turned toward her slowly. Alina, this is not a test you owe them. She met his eyes, steady, gentle. It is not for them, it is for me. If I run from fear now, I will spend the rest of my life running. The silence wrapped the room. At last, the king nodded, not because he wanted her to go, but because he respected the strength inside her. Marcus will send guards with you, he said. But the councilman spoke again, pretending concern while shaping poison with his tongue. If guards ride with her, enemies will suspect something important is being carried. She must travel alone like any ordinary maid. And it was too clear now. This wasn't about delivering a letter. It was about placing her in danger. The king's jaw tightened. He stood, the air shifting with his presence. If anything happens to her, every one of you will answer to me. The council bowed, pretending respect. Night fell quickly. The sky turned dark velvet, the road lit only by small lanterns. Alina held the sealed letter close to her chest, feeling the cool air brush her face. The castle slowly disappeared behind her, swallowed by distance and shadow. For a moment, doubt whispered, "What if this is a trap? What if I never returns? What if he loses trust because of me?" Then she remembered the quiet strength in his eyes when he said, "I trust you." She straightened her shoulders and walked deeper into the night. Crickets sang softly, leaves rustled. The world felt wide and lonely, yet alive. She had never left the castle grounds alone before. With every step, she learned something new about herself. She was not weak. She was not invisible. She was capable of courage. Halfway down the road, the lantern flickered, then went out. The darkness closed in. A branch snapped somewhere nearby. Another sound. Footsteps. She turned slowly. Someone stood at the edge of the trees, cloaked, silent, watching her. Her heart pounded. "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer. The figure stepped closer, moonlight revealing only a faint glint of eyes. And in that breathless moment, Alina understood. This journey was never about delivering a letter. It was about whether she would survive the night, and whether the vampire king would reach her in time, where trust lives. The forest held its breath. The figure stepped closer, slow and deliberate, as if the night itself had shaped into a human form. Alina's pulse hammered in her throat, but she stood still. Running would only feed their power. A voice whispered, "Oh, you should have stayed invisible." A cold, familiar. One of the council nobles. He smiled without warmth. "The king believed you. That makes you dangerous." So it was never about loyalty. It was about silence. He moved toward her, not with violence, but with the certainty that fear alone would break her. "Give me the letter," he said. "Walk away, never return, no one will know." Alina looked at the sealed envelope in her hand. Something inside her, something quieter than fear, spoke clearly. If she surrendered now, everything would fall. The poison. The whispers, the lies, they would win. Her voice trembled but did not break. No, his expression darkened. You are only a maid. She shook her head gently. No, I am someone who chose what is right. He reached out, but before his fingers touched the letter, the wind shifted. A hoofbeats, vast, sharp, relentless. The noble turned, eyes widening just as a dark horse burst through the trees, stopping with fierce precision. Moonlight caught pale features, strong shoulders, and eyes filled with a controlled fire. The vampire king dismounted in one movement. Not rage, not wild fury, something deeper, protective. He placed himself between Elena and the noble, voice steady as stone. The step away from her. The noble laughed weakly. My lord, I was simply lying, the king finished softly, as you always do. Marcus emerged behind him with guards, faces grim, the noble's confidence drained. You set the trap, the king said quietly. You arranged the poison, you tried to make the castle doubt her, you hoped fear would break what honesty had built. The noble tried to speak, but words failed him. He was taken away, not with cruelty, but with justice. The forest loosened. The air softened. For the first time since leaving the castle, Elena let herself breathe. The king turned to her slowly. His voice lost its edge, becoming human again. You should not have faced this alone. She smiled faintly. I wasn't alone. I carried your trust with me. Silence rested there, not empty, but warm, the letter still in her hand, untouched, unopened. He nodded toward it. It wasn't a message, he said gently. It was blank, a trap laid to reveal who would chase it. You were never the one on trial, they were. She blinked, surprised. So I was never meant to prove myself. His eyes softened. You already had. They walked back toward the castle together, the quiet road stretching before them. Something invisible had changed. Not rank, not status. Respect. Back at the castle, morning light spilled through the windows, washing everything in soft gold. The court awaited his judgment, but instead of rage, he spoke with calm authority. This kingdom will not be ruled by fear, he said, and truth does not belong only to nobles. Sometimes it is carried by hands used to scrubbing floors, hands cleaner than the hearts that judge them. Elena lowered her head, overwhelmed not with pride but gratitude. The king turned toward her. You may remain here as maid if you wish, or if you choose, you will serve beside Marcus as advisor for the people no one hears. Her breath caught. Not power, purpose. She thought of every servant who had gone unnoticed, every quiet heart afraid to speak, and she understood. I will serve, she said softly, not for reward, for what is right. He nodded, not as a king commanding, but as a man honoring another's strength. Days turned to weeks. The castle did not lose all its shadows, but light lived there now, not loud, not dramatic, gentle and steady. The vampire king stood more often in sunlight, and sometimes, when the halls were quiet, he would pause near the balcony where Elena worked and say quietly, almost like a confession meant only for her, I trust you. And every time, she answered simply, I'll protect that trust. Not a love story of possession, not a story of power. A story of two people who learned that real strength is quiet, honest, and brave enough to stand when the world expects silence. And in the deepest corners of the castle, the walls finally stopped holding their breath.